Welcome to Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan. If the name sounds like a business show to you, then you've got it all wrong. Kelly McMillan is the principal of McMillan Fiberglass Stocks and will talk about shooting for fun, competition, hunting, and self-defense. Now, here is your host, Kelly McMillan.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being with us on Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan. Really excited about today's show. I've got two really good friends of mine, and it's about time we've got both these guys together, and we're going to kind of be all together in one show. So I've got Andy Brown here in the studio sitting next to me. Andy, thanks for being here.
No problem.
And I've got Craig Sawman Sawyer. He's not in the studio, but he's here. Thanks for being with us, Craig.
It's my pleasure.
Okay. I'm going to start off with you, Craig. You've been on the show before, but we've got a lot of new viewers that may or may not know your history. So just give us a brief idea of who you are, where you grew up, your military experience, and how you got where you are today.
Yes, sir. Well, they call me Sawman. My name's Craig Sawyer. It's just a play on my last name. And I grew up in Southern Texas and played football, fighting, martial arts tournaments, hunting, fishing, riding dirt bikes. Took off to the Marine Corps and then went to the Navy SEAL teams. Spent the bulk of my adult life in the Navy SEAL teams. And then I did 5 years of federal law enforcement in the Federal Air Marshal Service. And then I did 10 years of high threat dignitary protection where I protected high-ranking officials of the United States in war zones from the Department of State and other agencies that we don't talk about. And then I transitioned more to film and television work, doing mostly technical advising, but I kept getting pushed in front of the camera. And then ended up over in Africa running counter-poacher operations with a team that I brought over there. And they filmed a mini-series on what we were doing there. And now I founded an organization called Veterans for Child Rescue, and we are running operations with federal and local law enforcement to run sting operations, and we're arresting a lot of child predators and taking them off the streets and rescuing children from harm's way. So that's a passion project. That's a life-changing piece of work that we're involved in there. So that's primarily what I'm busy with right now, although I'm also creating a very revolutionary firearm for military, law enforcement, and civilians. So we can chat about that a little bit later.
Okay, well, we've got a lot to talk about. First off, I want to thank you for your service. You know how I feel about you, but we here on Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan always like to have our former servicemen, people who have served, want to show them the utmost respect and let them know for sure how we feel about those people who choose to put it on the line to protect our freedom. So thanks for that. I appreciate it. So
Yes,
that's
sir.
one of the things I wanted to start with. You're one of the few guys I know who got out of the Marine Corps and ended up as a Navy SEAL. Can you kind of give me a rundown of how that happened, what you did in the Marine Corps, and then what made, how you made the decision to transition over to the SEALs?
Absolutely. Well, I went into the Marine Corps to be an operator in Force Recon. I'd read an article about it. And again, in the culture of Southern Texas at the time, the Marine Corps was kind of the baddest, meanest, toughest service branch, and the Force Recon were their most elite special operations unit. And I thought, man, that's where I want to be. And so I went in the Marine Corps and tried to get paperwork done to go into Force Recon. And what I learned when I was there at the time, this was in the early 80s, is people were saying, hey, we have a unit called Force Recon, Craig, but there's no real mission for them right now. There's no real political backing, and there's no real funding for them. So yes, you're in the Marine Corps, but there's not really anything to do with that unit at this time. And if you really want to operate, you should have gone to the Navy because they've got the budget and the toys and the mission. They're actually doing stuff. And I thought, well, man, how do I transition there? That's just horrible. I love the Marine Corps. I don't want to go, at the time, I didn't want to wear a Dixie cup hat and bell bottoms. That's a humiliation for a Marine, a hard charging devil dog. And they're like, no, SEALs are the baddest of the bad. They're period. They're the baddest dudes anywhere. So I'm like, okay, I don't care what service spreads they're a part of. I'm gonna go become a Navy SEAL. And so I tried getting a lateral transfer from the Marine Corps. They weren't going to put up with that at all. And I was just in an infantry unit. And so I put in paperwork for lateral transfer. And then I finally put paperwork just to get completely out of the Marine Corps, and went over, talked to recruiters, and got into the Navy and started completely over, and went all the way up from the bottom. And it was the right call, because I made it all the way to DevGru and got to achieve some things that I'm very proud to have been a part of, and I've been able to operate at that level with that quality of men and serve in that capacity. So, man, it was worth every inch of it.
Well, that says a lot about Craig Sawyer, about your dedication to want to be right on the front line and making a difference. As you know, because we've talked about it, my first association with the SEALs was in the mid 80s when they first formed SEAL Team 6. They were tasked with putting together this group of guys who could do anything. And I think it all stemmed from the failed Iran hostage rescue attempt, that we found out that we didn't have anybody trained to do everything. We had Army guys that were trained in special forces that did some things. And then we had, the SEALs that did some things, but nobody that could handle it all. And so when they first put together SEAL Team 6, they went out to get equipment for, this is a brand new team. So it wasn't like, we're just going to push all these old guns over to this new team. They said, you guys go out and get the very best of the best, so that we know when we go up against the bad guys, at least we've got the best equipment available. So they came to us, and my dad built a bunch of sniper rifles for them. So that was my first experience with him. And in those days, they just went through the team. And I think, because I know a lot of the guys, they pick guys without family, they pick guys without, that weren't married. And so they had no commitment, because they were thinking of these in terms of the missions that they were going to do, is maybe they're not going to come back from them. So they wanted to make sure that they were unencumbered, so to speak. Different situation now. When did you get to DevGru? What year?
It was in 92.
Okay, so that was back when they didn't really have the criteria set like they do now, where you can apply for and you go through the tests, and no matter what your situation is, if you pass, you're in. It was, or is that how it worked for you?
No, there was a long process to get to DevGru from a regular team. You had to have 4 years there. You had to have an outstanding service record and performance record, and then they evaluated you financially and upgraded your security clearance, interviewed your chain of command, so what kind of operator you were. Then they pass your name and photo around in the team room back at DevGru and ask, hey, what kind of operator is this guy? Is he good to go, or is he not worthy of this level of operation? And they get a lot of firsthand experience and recommendations there. And then if they like you in all those capacities, then they'll come out and interview you in person, look under the hood, kick your tires a little bit, and then make a further analysis, and then put you through 6 months of in-house training. And they put you through everything that they need to see you do at their level. And when I was going through, about half of the seasoned operators from other teams didn't make it through that green team 6 months block of qualification there at Dev. So it's a process to get there. And
yeah, it's a little bit different now. From what I understand, they post when they're having another class, and anybody who meets the qualifications can basically sign up for that class. And it's almost like a BUD/S, where they're putting you through an intense training and evaluation scenarios, and it takes quite a while. But anybody who wants to apply for it that meets the criteria can, and if you pass, you're in. They do a little bit of what you're talking about, where they interview the people that have worked with them and worked around them to make sure that he's the kind of guy who's got your back when it, the shit hits a fan. But so it wasn't like back in your days where they pretty much came and sought you out and said, we think you'd be perfect for this, and are you interested? But the fact that, and let's do this, SEAL Team 6, Obama referred to SEAL Team 6. It really hasn't existed since 94, was it?
It was. I think it was before that.
Okay, because when you went in, it was DevGru.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
yep.
But they still talk about it as SEAL Team 6 just because everybody kind of knows that they're the baddest of the bad.
Yeah, that's the language that's used, especially since Biden came out on national television after the Bin Laden raid.
Yeah, I found a couple of things that were interesting about and we worked almost exclusively with the snipers because they were the ones that came to the shop, spend a lot of time learning how to maintain the weapons and how they worked. And, that, I guess that was part of their sense of getting to know their equipment. And, a lot of guys like my dad. And because, like I said, a lot of the guys that they put on this first SEAL team didn't really have family. So they kind of adopted my dad as kind of like their surrogate father. So it was pretty cool.
Well, I understand why they would have chosen guys without families, because that's when I was there, I was deployed about 300 days a year for a couple of years there. So it was not easy on the home life. I hear they've tried to remedy that since then, but it's
nobody knows anymore what all they're tasked with, but I think they're pretty smart in how they want to deploy their guys so that they can keep their teams together, without guys having to make a choice over family or the teams,
Yeah, you've got to have a rotation. If you're going to sustain that indefinitely, you've got to have a refreshing, rejuvenating process, and there's a cycle for that. So they figured that out.
So all of that experience prepared you for life afterwards, and I'm being facetious because I know none of it does. How did you transition from being an operator? And I know you said you did a lot of consulting on television and stuff simply because you were a weapons specialist and operations specialist.
Well, yeah, I knew some guys that trained actors to fight, to climb, to do other things. We're talking about big A-list actors for these big blockbuster feature films, and a couple of them told me, "Hey, Saw, you'd be a fantastic technical advisor, man, because the way you move and shoot, you're good at that, and you're a likable guy, and so." I think you'd be good at it. So I thought, oh yeah, that's fantastic. But when they were telling me this, I was at the peak of my career running the gun at DevGru, so I didn't have any time to think about that. So fast forward another decade later, once I was out, I thought, man, I do have the opportunity now to kind of pitch in and take an actor and show him how to move and shoot and fight in a way that he does look like a seasoned pro. And if he's playing the role of an assassin or a SWAT team member or a special operator, I can get him there and show him the techniques, and he can really shine in that role. So I started doing that, and I learned there were a couple of gatekeepers in Hollywood that didn't want someone like me in. What they do is the old guys, they'll hire young guys who are naive and just feed them just pennies, just scraps. They'll help on one movie, and then they'll never call them again. And so that's the game that's being played. So these guys weren't going to let me really get in there and make a big contribution. So I didn't get the work through the two biggest names in military tech advising, especially on the SEAL side, even though he told me he wanted to work with me. It's been personal contacts that have connected me directly to the actors themselves. So what I do more than anything else is directly train the A-list actors on how to do what they do. And that's been a fun process. So it's just been a journey, step by step. Things happen organically the way they're supposed to, and it's been enjoyable.
I don't want to talk about Hollywood because we're really here to talk about you, but I'm just curious. any of the guys that you work with that you think is really top notch at taking what you taught them? And the reason I ask this is because I think that Keanu Reeves has worked really hard at his gun handling skills because of some of the roles that he's played. I've seen video of him in real life, doing a course that is really top-notch work. And so I was just wondering if you worked with any of the guys who weren't just actors and who really put the time into learning how to handle a gun and do the things you taught them.
Yeah, well, yes. The answer is yes. A lot of those relationships are confidential, so I respect and honor that.
Okay.
With Keanu, I know two guys that work with him very closely, and what I want to do is, because the bulk of my expertise is with the long gun. Although I'm an accomplished fighter, pistol shooter, I'm known for my sniper expertise. And what I wanted to do was help choreograph and write a scene for Keanu for his film series, and kind of show off a long gunner capability. And what the guy that's closest to him right now said was, well, there's no story written for a sniper segment, and so we're not going to have you involved. I thought, man, I co-write films. I've some of the biggest film writers out there. They helped me, or they reached to me, and I helped them write and choreograph these scenes to show off sniper prowess, especially on the spec ops. And a lot of the public don't know how we snipe. They imagine it being daytime in the prone at super long distance, only with a bolt rifle, and that's just not the reality of how things are nowadays. So there's some really sexy stuff that I could share. I think they probably will happen with Keanu, and I look forward to doing that. I understand that he's a really humble and good guy, and a very hard worker, and like so many of the others that I've trained. And it's interesting, Kelly, regardless of their politics, I find that the really good actors, man, they're quick learners and they're hard workers. There's one whose politics I completely disagree with. He and I we've actually become very good friends. We've never spoken a word of politics because we know we're at polar opposite ends of the spectrum, but we like each other personally, and we just leave the politics out of it. We just relate one-on-one, and it's been great. That's the only way it can work, and he's got other friends that, that are patriots and conservatives as well, other big rock and roll stars and stuff like that. It's funny to watch these relationships develop.
So, man, that's pretty gnarly, I'm going to say. Have you been able to use the Tom car a lot over at Cowtown with Gunny and so on? I think I've seen you out there a couple times. Yeah,
I've been using the Tom car a lot. We've used it for quite a few different things. So those things are great, and we enjoy them. They're tough.
And I remember the first time I met you were up on the platform, and I had my daughter with me, who at the time was maybe 7 years old, and you helped her look through night vision, and that was really fun for her. And then we came down to your house about a year ago, and you spent time playing with the turtles and the dog. So I know that kids have a big part in your heart, and I really applaud what you're doing. I've been watching it, and you're bringing down a lot of people that do a lot of bad stuff. So that's awesome.
Yeah, well, we got to look after the little people, man. I've always had a soft spot in my heart for them. I think most rational and healthy-minded adults do have that soft spot for children, man. We've all been children. We understand how vulnerable and susceptible we are, and as adults, man, we've got to look after them, and that's just the way we should be, man.
Thank you.
That's a perfect transition to what I really brought you on here for, and what I want to talk about. You've always had a big heart. You've got involved in other projects that really were more than just creating a TV show. I know everything that you do, you want to have a purpose that's trying to make this world a better place. And I learned a lot about human trafficking after the last time you were on my show, because I thought, wow, for Craig to put this much effort into what he's doing, it's got to be a bigger deal than I'm aware of. And, you know, it wasn't probably 6 months ago, I saw 3 or 4 big segments on, you know, national news about how bad that this really is, not only from foreign countries and Americans being kidnapped and sold and, you know, abused, but it's going on right here in this country.
Yes, sir.
So tell everybody who's watching, one, what human trafficking is and why you're dedicated to this child protection thing, and tell us how bad it is and why everybody needs to be aware of it.
Yeah, man. Well, it's important. And after this last election and this new administration got in place and started arresting pedophiles and child traffickers at a record and alarming rate, some of my friends, again, I've been in federal law enforcement before. Some of my friends in federal law enforcement in high places were letting me know just how bad this is and how pervasive it is, how widespread it is, and how it's everywhere. It's not something that happens in another place to someone else's kids. What's happening here in the United States, in every major city and in most small towns. It's so what it is it's a new form of capitalism, if you will, a sick and twisted and evil form of capitalism. It's the new contraband, if you want to call it that, is children. The cartels and the gangs and the crooked politicians and the other crime syndicates that are looking to capitalize criminally have traditionally run narcotics as their primary trade or their primary form of raising revenue. And what they found is that you can consume a narcotic once and it's done. You sell it once and it's consumed. But a child, you can sell them to a sick and perverted client repeatedly. So children have become the next contraband, and the United States has become the next contra land. And that's why our producer crew has dubbed our new feature film documentary Contraland. That's the name of it. It's going to air on Netflix. Probably it's going to be wintertime now, so winter of 2018. And I just started learning how bad it was and started researching and realized I had to do something about it, Kelly. And I know that legally it's very difficult to do anything here in the continental United States. And I've operated elsewhere my entire life, 55 countries around the world with counterterrorism, counter-poaching operations, and I understand all those things. And I realized I've got a lot of connections in the intelligence community and federal law enforcement, politicians, diplomats, and special operations community. So I realized I've got contacts that could really help me make a lot of things happen. And if I rally my smartest and best contacts, I can put together a team of really a coalition of white hat patriots to bring the exposure to this problem that's so needed. So we can't fight what we don't know as a society. And like you admitted, man, you didn't know much about it. Same here. I didn't know until my friends started telling me, because they don't tell us about it on the mainstream news media. It's spookily and eerily quiet about this. For this to be, man, I mean, if a cop shoots somebody in the knee, man, you hear about it on headline news. But if thousands of child predators are arrested, they don't say anything about it. We got to ask ourselves why. And it's weird, and it has to do with who own all of our mainstream news networks. This is something that the elites are into. They're benefiting from it politically and financially. So
I'm not going to try to make any excuses for the mainstream media, but I'm going to tell you, I'm a little sick to my stomach right now, just talking about it and thinking about it. And when you refer to pedophiles and perverted sick people, honestly, I think the news people have just decided that our listeners or viewers don't want to hear about that stuff because it's too bad. And you wouldn't think that anything in the news feed could be too bad for news. You know, they heard the old story about, murder is great news or what, but this is something so totally different that I know for me, it doesn't set well with me.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that it would have to almost be a community decision for none of the mainstream media to cover this kind of stuff. So I'm with you. I'm not sure why that's the case, but yeah, it's a little unsettling for me to talk about it.
Well, I maybe you've seen what I've seen, and there are lists of quotes, and there are recordings of quotes, direct quotes, word for word, that every single mainstream news media has quoted on all stations across the board. And so there's clearly a narrative and talking points put out at the top of the mainstream news media, and they'll carry that agenda forward. And we can speculate on who those puppeteers are and how that all works, but that'd be outside of the scope of this discussion. But suffice it to say, the American people are not being informed. So I realized, standing up this effort to counter what's going on, the best weapon I could bring to defend the children is exposure, because we can't fight what we don't know. And
what can I do to help you?
Yeah, man. Well, so we're filming Contraland, and we're going to blow that out there. We need people to pay attention. We've got to fund our operations. We're running sting operations. We're running rescues. And we've got all kinds of things going on where people can go to our website and see how they can get involved with investigations, with supporting us on social media and all that. So if people can go to vetsforchildrescue.org, log in there, and there are how to help tabs, and there's all kinds of information. So sort through those tabs. You'll see there's a donate button. There's all kinds of things that you can do to help us. And we are making record pace achievements with the money that we do have. And let's face it, the big elites aren't donating and sponsoring us. We got one big donation of $100,000, and that's really been it. Everything else has been small donations, primarily from just mom and pop, people that know who I am, that believe in us and the mission. They're victims in a lot of cases, and they want to see something done. So we, the people, are rallying this movement, and we're bypassing the gatekeepers of Hollywood, and we're bringing our own documentary to Netflix that's going to hit 100 to 120 million Americans. So that's a third of the country, man. We're gonna bring this in fine form. It's a high quality documentary. We're ripping the lid off of this. We're showing the American people the truth. So we're arresting pedophiles from coast to coast who are coming in for the children. We're filming it all. We're working with federal law enforcement, with local law enforcement, district attorneys. This is happening. We've got evidence and news clips and everything else right on our website. So at first, people wanted to deny it and say that it wasn't happening. But now that we're working with all of the official entities, they can't say that it's not happening anymore. We're overcoming all of the naysayers.
So give us that website one more time.
Yes, sir. vetsforchildrescue.org.
And the name of the movie?
Contraland. One word, Contraland.
And that's going to be Netflix in the summer?
Yes, sir.
Winter. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're about out of time, Craig. I really do appreciate all the things that you do for this country, everything that you've done for the protection of our liberty. And now I'm really behind you with this new project of yours. And I wish you all the luck in the world, because our kids need it.
Well, thank you, sir. I don't want to extend my time, but I'll just say this before I sign off. One of the cool things about knowing you is one of the mans behind the brand of the McMillan. So I carry McMillan stocks and McMillan rifles all over planet Earth as a Navy SEAL sniper. And it's cool to know you in that capacity, Kelly, other than just being a nice guy. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate you having me on and giving it some exposure for our mission for the children and getting behind us. I really do.
Yeah, maybe next time you come back, we'll get to spend a little bit more time, and you'll be able to talk about your rifle. So
yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah,
let me know when that time is right, and we'll make sure we get you back on.
Will do, sir.
Okay, thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take a short little break here. We got a commercial coming up for you. So all of you on Facebook, stay tuned, stick with us, enjoy the commercial, and we'll be back in about a minute.
we're here today to talk about two items. The first one is that ELR HQ does carry actions. The actions we have here, this is the Kelby Atlas Tactical. So we do have these in stock if you're looking for them. We also have the Panda in short action in stock if you're looking for them. What we're really happy to be representing is the JJ Rock Super XL. What's really neat about this, when you open it up, you're going to get this challenge coin, which not only opens your beer bottle, but actually has a serial number of the action emblazoned on it. That's kind of neat. I've never seen anything like that before. Their action is really something to behold. It is engineered in and out to be exactly what you need in your ELR shooting. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the RAD 2.0 system that we are also carrying on ELRHQ.com. This is it in its raw form when you get it. You also will receive the tools needed to adjust your length of pull and to adjust the type of recoil or pressure you want to feel upon recoil. So really neat that you get those two adjustments. It does everything a three-way does and more. You've got your in, out, you've got your up, down, left, right, and can't. Look us up at ELRHQ.com. I don't know the number by heart, so I'll tell it to you. It's 800-613-2391. There is one other thing I wanted to discuss. ELRHQ.com is having a really good sale on scopes and other electronics. So if you're looking for the SIG 2400 ABS, or you're looking for the 2200 MR Kilo, if you're looking for Vortex, Night Force, we've got Night Force in several different configurations. We've got the Razor HD2 here, 4.5 to 27 by 56 with the EBR2C MRAD. We also have one with the EDR2C MOA. So if you're looking for any scopes, give me a call directly. My name is Zev Nadler, and you can reach me, again, I got to use a card, at 800-613-2391. Thank you.
Now, hey, Andy, I was hoping you'd get a chance to talk with Craig a little bit. I know you know him, and unfortunately, as you see, time flies. It's hard to believe how fast 30 minutes goes by when you're in the middle of a conversation.
Yeah, no problem, Kelly. I have known Craig for some time. I was trying to think as we were in the conversation the first time I was being introduced to him, and I think it was probably at Cowtown, actually, kind of like what Zev was saying. And we were doing some training out there, and I had the opportunity to be out there and to be introduced to him. So even though I didn't get an opportunity to talk to him on the show, it was amazing hearing what he's been involved with and what he's up to. I greatly appreciate people like him who have not only served their country in their career, but in post-career are doing the best they can to continue to support the country with programs like Vets for Child Rescue.
Well, let's talk about you now. Give our viewers an opportunity to get to know you a little bit. Where'd you grow up? You know, I know I ended up, you know, giving you a job, so hiring you, and you did great work, and that kind of led you into your career. But tell us about how you grew up.
Yeah, Kelly. I grew up here in Arizona. I was born, I believe, if I can trace back, I'm fourth generation Arizonan. My family came in the mid-1800s on my father's side, and they were ranchers and cattlemen. They were farmers, hardworking people. And I grew up here with one foot in the city and the other foot in the mountains. I grew up with a mother who was educated, with a grandmother who was highly educated. She was a professor. She had several master's degrees. And on my father's side, they were hardworking carpenters and soldiers and sailors. And so I feel like growing up here in Arizona, I had a unique opportunity to blend the two, to spend time riding horseback in the mountains, up on the Mogollon Rim and by Payson, and to learn how to fish and to hike and to hunt and to survive. And then on the other side, being raised in Phoenix, I had the opportunity for a good education. So I was, once again, it's interesting how things can cause us in life to remember the beginning and how people meet. And I remember I was introduced to you by a mutual friend of ours, and they knew that I had been involved in working in Mexico City on a joint mission. It was a U.S. government-sponsored mission down there, U.S. Army. It was Department of State and Department of Commerce. And it was just as some of the cartels and the nefarious activity down there became more and more prominent. And the U.S. government had earmarked funds and training and many programs to help assist in eradicating some of that activity. And I had done that. I had came back, and I was in a little bit of a lull. And our mutual friend said, "Go by, see Kelly, talk to him." And so I did. And I remember that first time that we met, sitting in your office, and we talked about a lot of different things. We talked about religion. We talked about politics. And I really thought this is a good opportunity. And so, as you know, I came to the point, I think, in the next few weeks where I came to the decision that I would work with you, and you were willing to hire me, and started working for, at that point, Macmillan, and on several different things.
You know, one of my first impressions about you is that you were very intelligent, and you proved that out because, you know, as we hired you for basically a sales position, but you worked into doing all of our contracting work and negotiating between foreign countries. And I mean, you did a lot of the brain work that's difficult to do, even when you own the business. So hats off to you and to your mom and to your grandmother. Obviously the intelligence you came by naturally, but it was really good to have you. Now, I think you worked for Macmillan Firearms right up until the time I sold it, right?
Yes, sir. It was one of those things. And first, I have to say thank you. That's an excellent comment, especially coming from you. And I never have considered myself overly intelligent, overly handsome, overly strong. But I feel like that I have been given a unique opportunity in this land. And my parents instilled that in me, my mother and my father, not only to serve and to protect and to do my best for society, but also to use what I've been given, any measure of intelligence or strength, to make the most of it and to be industrious. So I appreciate that. In regards to working for you, I really have to say it was a pleasure getting involved in that. And I love the international aspect of negotiations and trade and agreements and contracts and things. And it really gave me a springboard for the things that I accomplish next in my career. So I have to thank you for that again as well.
And if I remember correctly, I think you had pretty much decided that you wanted to move on in your career even before the sale of the company was done, and you went ahead and stayed with us until that happened. But you had already decided that there was something else out there that you were basically driven to explore and to see what you could do and accomplish. And to me, I thought, that's a weird notion. I wonder why, and I don't want to give it away because I want you to talk about it. But when you told me what you wanted to do, I thought, I wonder how a guy comes to that conclusion that he wants to do this just out of the blue. So talk about where you went from Macmillan Firearms and how you got to that decision to even pursue that, and then what it took for you to accomplish that.
Well, you're 100% correct. I had kind of decided I wanted to not only participate on the international side from a computer and a phone and a negotiation and a meeting side, but also to experience it with my own eyes and to put my boots on the ground in different places. And going back a little bit, I was very fortunate in life to have spent time in East Africa, in a few countries, and in Mexico and different places as a very young man in my teens. And that drove me and gave me a passion for the international side, for culture, to learn language and to understand how people in other places live and why they make the decisions they do. And that has kind of been a common thread. Upon the sale of the firearms company, I had made the decision at that point to make a clean break, and I was offered a position through a series of events to work overseas, to have that ability to see those things that you read about and to participate in those things as a first-hand participant instead of as someone who is an observer.
So you say a series of events. And I know some of the things that you can't talk about, but this wasn't just a series of random events. You worked your butt off to make this happen. So you set a goal, you figured out what it was going to take for you to be able to make it happen, and then you did those things, and then the offer came. And it wasn't all in a matter of just a couple of days.
No, as with most things in life, I feel that the best things in life or the most lasting things in life take time. And for something like this, it did take time. I hadn't been involved in a process for a matter of many months. And the timing actually with the sales of the firearms company was perfect because it allowed me to leave employment with you and to not get involved with another group and to start something completely new. And yes, there are some things I'd rather not talk about. I'd say I'm not anything special. I'm on after Craig Sawyer, who has truly he's done everything. He's been everywhere. 55 countries and a Navy SEAL and a Marine and people who I've had the unique opportunity to work beside and to see firsthand the skill and the ability that they have on so many different aspects. And the respect I have for those people is beyond the words that I have to express. But I have to say that it's a little bit of a hard act to follow, but and not to say that I'm anything special. But the process and the people involved and the specific groups that I worked with, I'd rather not get into a lot of detail. But what I will say is that the process took a little time, and it took a dedication. It took a work ethic that I have to say comes as well from my parents. I have to give them a lot of credit in the successes I have in my life because of the lessons, the morality they taught, the ethics that they taught. And some of that comes down to doing whatever it takes to accomplish a goal. If that is to close a contract with a foreign country that's difficult to negotiate with, or if that's to orchestrate and plan and execute something overseas, or if that's to get up and make my bed in the morning, the discipline and the hard work has to be an element of it. You can't get away from it.
I don't want to ask you a bunch of questions and you say, well, I'd rather not answer that. I have a list of things that you gave me ahead of time. So I'm assuming if we talk about this stuff, we'll be okay. So first off, you spent time in the Middle East. That in itself, and when we talk about the Middle East, we're talking specifically about Afghanistan, right?
Well, to be honest, multiple countries, the Middle East and Asia, and Afghanistan is the theater of operation that I spent the most time involved with and I'm most familiar with. I have lived also in Dubai and in the Emirates and gotten
Tough
around.
Job.
Well, yeah, I was mostly a transiting through, but I had a 7-8 month period that I was based out of Dubai, which was a lot more interesting than Afghanistan, obviously. But the majority of the time that I spent in the last 5 years has been in the theater of operation of Afghanistan. And fortunately, and I look at it in a positive way, but fortunately I have had the unique opportunity to not be located in one area, but to have seen a lot of the country and to have been involved with not just one type of operation, but multiple types of operations, from the very dust and boots on the ground to some of the parliamentary things. And I'm very blessed to have had that unique perspective, and not just with Afghanistan and Central Asia and Uzbekistan and other places like that, but also with the Middle East, which is a related but separate area. The experiences that I've had there, I believe, have fueled me even more to understand the nuts and bolts of the religion and the motivations behind the decisions that are made, and everything from the very peaceful side of the Middle East to the very violent, very extreme side, and to try to understand that. And the 5 years that I spent in the region, I believe, have given me an insight. I am by no means an expert, but an insight into those things.
And I think it's interesting because you didn't go over there as a warrior. You weren't in the military, so you didn't have a job that dictated that your behavior almost indicated how you were going to feel about the people. and I'm jumping to conclusions maybe, but your second bullet point here is the difference between wartime in Afghanistan and peacetime. And I think that's kind of erroneous, because as far as I understand, we're still at war with them. And it's the longest existing war America has ever been in. And I don't think that that's changed. But I'm assuming you're talking about trying to transition from fighting to helping the community, which is why we're there now for the most part, other than to make sure that Al-Qaeda or the Taliban aren't, basically rebuilding again. You tell me in your own words what that part of this is about for you.
Well, the truth of the matter is that you're 100% correct. There is a war in Afghanistan, and although we don't hear as much about it now as we have in times past, there is an active engagement of the enemies of our country, if they be the Taliban, if they be Al-Qaeda, if they'll be one of the other networks that's based in the area, if it be Daesh, which is more commonly known as ISIS or ISIL. Those organizations are actively trying to regain control of the country. And the bullet point, the heading there was to spurn a little bit of a conversation on that. I first hit the ground in Afghanistan. My boots walked off of an aircraft under a military authorization into the Helmand province. And I cut my teeth very quickly on operating an organization and an operation there that didn't just operate on the military bases, but also had responsibility to operate in that entire Helmand River Valley, in Kandahar, and also in the Nimroz provinces, which are the three southern provinces that border Pakistan and Iran. And so very quickly, I gained that experience, that firsthand experience that I had a desire to understand firsthand. The comment, the difference between wartime and peace is technically we retrograded. I was there when we retrograded those main bases. Those some of them were supposed to be permanent bases. The decision under the administration at the time was to bring the troops home, because politically it was very popular to do so. And although, people have a varying of opinion if we should be in theaters of operations such as Afghanistan or Iraq, or now Syria is obviously a headline all the time, the fact of the matter is we're there. We're in Afghanistan. And we have been there for a long time. And you are correct. It's the longest war that America has ever in the history of our nation been a participant in. And so the difference between wartime and peacetime was a transition that I saw with my own eyes that tried to happen. That politically, from the very top of our country down, the people involved wanted to end the war, because politically we needed to, quote unquote, bring the troops home. And so that transition is the difference from military control to civilian control under the Department of State. It's a difference in a command control. It's a difference in taking an area of operation and controlling it, and then bringing in the more soft sources, the programs that instill a justice system, the programs that put together education, the programs that put together women's leadership and development, and a lot of other things. And so I saw with my own eyes from when the military was actively involved in the combat operations, to the transition. And to put that very distinctly, when I first went there, it was under ISAF control, which is a NATO organization. International Security Assistance Force is ISAF. And after that decision was made at the top level, it became RS, regional support. So the role of the military was changed. The military at large was retrograded from those places, and the State Department and the programs began to come in more prominently and try to set up the rules and the laws and the order and the education of a nation that had been torn by war for generations.
So I guess the question that really comes to my mind is, how did the Afghani people that you came in contact with, that were not soldiers, that were just the people that were trying to live in their country, how did they feel about what you were doing?
I would say that by and large, I don't think anything is 100% in life. I think that there's always exceptions. But by and large, the people that I had contact with, and I'll tell you this, part of my responsibility was to have contact with people. And so I had the opportunity to set one-on-one or in small groups and to ask questions and to learn some of their language and to try to understand the cultural aspect of it. And the people that I was involved in, and probably several hundred over the years, I didn't count how many average people I talked to. I would say that they have a desire in their heart for the things that all mankind desires, which is the pursuit of some kind of happiness, some kind of normalcy, some kind of stability and peace. And I'll say this because it was a common thread that no matter whom I seemed to talk to would say to me, and they would say, and this is going to sound interesting, they would say, we hate our country. We hate Afghanistan. It's not a good country like America. You know, it doesn't have the peace. And I would say, well, express yourself more. You know, it's not that they hate their country. It's that they hate the condition of their country. They don't sometimes have the vocabulary in English, and I don't have the vocabulary in Dari, Farsi, to understand or have that expressed to me properly. But they have a desire for those things, I think, that are common core human desires. The problem is that there is a lot of factors. Afghanistan is a land of not just bifurcation, but so many factions and so much history and so many tribes and so many clans and so many divisions along religion and extremism and warlords, and for 1,000 years has had been fought over and had difficulty. I mean, the British Empire was there in the 1800s. And even before that, you know, the different rulers came and their conquests all the way down to modern era. We know that the Russians had a time there. We are currently there. And I don't honestly see that changing. And so the people that I talk to know their history, and they know the difficulties, and they desire things for their country. But I think they feel a sense of entrapment because of the history, and because history cannot be easily or quickly forgotten.
I'm going to break in right here because I'm going to let you know that I'm running my computer on its battery, and I just got a low battery signal. So I don't know whether that means 2 or 3 minutes. We are pushing on an hour for the show, so we're pretty close to the end. Andy, I want to thank you for being here. I'd really like just a quick answer. Do you think what you did while you were there did any good?
The quick answer, yes.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know. You know, a lot of people, I know, I've talked to people who fought in Iraq, and they said, you know, the Iraqis are fairly lazy people, and they just really want us to do it for them. They didn't want to learn to take care of themselves. They just wanted somebody to do it for them. And I just didn't know if what all of the effort that we're putting into Afghanistan, if it was any different. I think that you hit the nail right on the head when you said they've been fighting for thousands of years. They'll probably be fighting for another 1,000 just because it's in their nature, their history. They don't know any better. They don't know anything different. And for the same reasons you mentioned, different clans, different tribes, different religions, different people, all fighting for, you know, the land that they think is theirs. So sorry, I told you when we started this, it's hard to imagine how fast time flies when you're having conversations, and this is really great. I definitely want to have you back because there's a lot of things that we didn't get to go over on this list of yours, like just transitioning back from spending so much time in the Middle East to coming home. And I know that had to be something that was, everybody thinks, oh, it'd be easy because you love your country and you want to be here. But it's a different thing, and I'm sure that you'd have a lot to share about that. So next time you come back, we'll make sure that's where we get started. For now, I want to have Cooper come on, talk to you about our social media and what we've got going. Cooper?
Hi, Kelly. Thanks for having me on. I just want to remind our listeners to follow and like our Instagram and Facebook pages. We're on Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan on both Facebook and Instagram. And then for everything McMillan, we have McMillan Fiberglass Stocks on Facebook and McMillan_stocks on Instagram. And then, of course, please like and follow our ELR HQ Facebook and Instagram feeds.
Thanks, Cooper. That was awesome. One more thing. I want to thank everybody who tuned in on Facebook. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. It's difficult for me. Cooper usually watches the feed and lets me know if there's anything that we need to focus on, any questions that need to be answered. I was trying to follow it, but it's hard for me to watch the screen, be aware of our guests and everything else that's going on, and really get to read the feed as well. But I want to thank everyone that posted, and thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate you being viewers. I'm really proud of this show. Zeb's worked really hard. The engineering part of it is not easy. As you saw from last week's show, there are some things that come up that we just haven't encountered before. So when we try to put on something special for you and it doesn't quite work out, be patient with us and then give us another chance, because I think this show went perfectly. No technical issues, no glitches, and we got to do everything that we wanted to do. Once again, thanks for being part of Taking Stock with Kelly McMillan. Proud to have all of you as viewers and look forward to the next podcast, and we'll see you then.